Welcome back to the podcast History of Our World. Chapter 62. The Fortunes of Qin. Qin has the same customs of the barbarian tribes Rong and Di. It has the heart of a tiger or a wolf, greedy, profit-loving, and untrustworthy. It is ignorant of polite manners, proper relationships, and whenever the opportunity for gain arises, it will treat relatives as if they were mere animals. This glowing dismissal of the Qin comes from a Wei noble, but it could have been expressed by most states during the 3rd century BC. Yeah, it's true that they're a bit rough around the edges, but come on, any of the 7 states still remaining could be described as profit-loving and opportunistic. This is a war for supremacy, after all. Yet the Qin seem to have a certain untamed flair that even they realized needed to be reined in. To this came the reforms of Shang Yang, alluded to last time. The progenitor of legalism, he transformed Qin society by abolishing the aristocratic order. Now it's meritocracy based on military achievements. He also pushed for strict punishments of small crimes, rationalizing that doing so would prevent larger ones, and basically created a big brother state. Every citizen was legally required to keep an eye on everyone else, ratting out anyone harboring views that conflicted with the king. These reforms were considered draconian by our own grand historian Sima Qian, but they worked for Qin. A duke even got to be hegemon for a while. However, at the core of the Qin state was the military. You couldn't advance in society without some merit on the battlefield. And so they began to move outside their mountainous realm, conquering a large swath of land to their west, before turning east to go after the lowest hanging fruit branch, the Zhou. In 256, the Qin invaded what remained of the Zhou territory and executed the last king. The Zhou were officially a footnote of history, but no one really seemed to care. The Mandate of Heaven had clearly been lost a while ago, and so what? However, according to traditional accounts, as the Qin paraded the 9 sacred tripods back home, somehow they all fell into the Si River, and no one was able to dredge them back up. A most inauspicious omen. Anyway, it's now the year 250 BC, and Lord Zhongguo is next in line for the throne of Qin. It also looks like it'll be his soon, as his father had already ruled for over 50 years. But matters of ascension aside, his chief and favorite wife, Huayang, was still without a son. Now you might say favorite wife, that implies he has others, and yes he does. Many in fact, including concubines as well. But the son of Huayang would be his crown prince. Meanwhile, a son of one of those concubines had been traded to the state of Zhou, northeast of Qin, as a token of the Qin's good intentions. This state, last time I pronounced it Shao, but it really sounds closer to Zhou. The romanization spells it Z-H-A-O, and I don't know why I assumed that's also the way it's pronounced, but it's not. Anyway, the hostage prince's name was Zichu, and he was taken care of in his prison/home, but nowhere near the standards of what a prince should expect. Now who comes along but Lu Buwei, a famous and wealthy merchant. He had learned of Zichu's situation, and felt that he would undoubtedly like some company. Upon greeting him, Zichu is a bit snarky to his visitor, but Lu Buwei smiles it off and cuts right to the chase. Listen, you have 20 brothers, you're barely favored, and you're a hostage. When the king dies and Lord Zhongguo takes the throne, what hope do you have? So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make you his heir. Zichu nodded and said, "If you can pull it off, I'll split my kingdom in half and share it with you." Deal! Zichu was given enough gold to tidy himself up and attract some attendants, while Lu Buwei went out to start purchasing gifts and other luxuries to bring back to Qin. Once there, he heads to the royal palace to seek an audience with Huayang's older sister. See, he immediately starts plying her with gifts, sweet-talking her before seeing his opportunity to start praising Zichu, and what a shame it is that he's not crown prince. She took the bait, and went to convince Huayang that the solution to her no-son situation was to adopt Zichu, which would ensure her future comfort and success when the current Qin king dies. And as siblings are with each other, she's pretty blunt about it. If you don't put down roots while you're blossoming, when your beauty fades, his love will slacken. And even if you wish to offer a single suggestion, could you still do so? Well, Huayang is all aboard this idea, and she asks the final person in this chain, her husband Anguo. He agrees. Zichu is made crown prince, and Lu Buwei royal tutor while the prince finishes his stay in Chou. At this time, Lu Buwei was no doubt dreaming of what life will be like being pampered at the palace. But the initial joy soured a bit when Zichu began admiring Lu Buwei's lover, the Lady Chou. She was the daughter of a high-up Chou family and a skilled dancer, but she was also Lu Buwei's gal. Still, he was ever the impartial businessman, and he bit his tongue, ground his teeth, and allowed the new crown prince to pursue his interests, which also included getting her pregnant. Now, around the same time, the Qin decided to attack Chou, evidently forgetting about Zichu, but he was able to buy his freedom out of the city. He doesn't apparently pay for his wife and newborn son, but they eventually escape to him because of their society connections. Well, the happy family and their tutor/sponsor were reunited in the Qin capital of Shanyang, just outside modern-day Xi'an. The Qin king was also dead, and Lord Anguo, now King Shaowen, took the throne, which meant Zichu was just one step closer to becoming king. And then, curiously, about 3 days into his reign, King Shaowen dies. That doesn't seem suspicious. And there's no evidence to suggest Lu Buwei's hand in this, but it's still suspicious all the same. Oh well, this also means that the happy family was now even happier, because Zichu was now king, Lady Chou was now royal consort, and his son, Cheng, was crown prince. And Lu Buwei was really happy, because Zichu was good to his word. He enfeoffed to Lu Buwei control of 100,000 households, and was named prime minister. During Zichu's reign, he pardoned criminals, stamped out the last gasp of air from the Zhou, a remaining duke was trying to resurrect the dynasty, and 3 years into his reign, he also dies. So alright then, let's redo the family thing once more. It's 246 BC. Cheng is now the 13-year-old king of Qin, although because of his age, a cadre of generals, ministers, and officials will rule until he's old enough. Mom, the Lady Chou, is now Queen Dowager, and Lu Buwei is still Prime Minister and is also called Second Father by Cheng. Aw, well, even without Dad, it's still a big happy family. Well, except for the stuff happening behind closed doors, because with Zichu out of the picture, Lu Buwei and the Lady Chou resumed their love affair. Or just simply continued doing what they were already doing in the first place, because it never actually ended at all. You come to think of it, her pregnancy did seem a little fast. Almost as if she was pregnant before she met Zichu. Sima Qian certainly thinks so, which would mean Cheng is actually Lu Buwei's son. But then again, Sima Qian was not a big fan of the Qin, so it might just be a rumor. Anyway, as for Lu Buwei, he's getting a little nervous about the teenaged king discovering his indiscretions, so he hires a man named Lao Ai, famous for the size of his personality. He's presented to the Queen Dowager, and per her approval, someone accuses him of a crime that would merit castration. It seems weird, right? But this is all part of the plan, as they have his hair and eyebrows plucked out to disguise him as a eunuch, so he could be moved into the Queen's chambers, but left still intact, so the two could develop their professional relationship. Now, while Lu Buwei had gotten pretty jealous the first time the Lady Chou canoodled with Zichu, this time he doesn't seem to be bothered by any of it. What feelings he still had for her, we can only guess at, but clearly he was more concerned with maintaining his current good fortunes. Well, sure enough, the Lady Chou became pregnant and left the capital to have her 2 new children in secret. In the meantime, she bestowed on Lao Ai his own palace and noble trappings and wealth because, hey, why not? And Lao Ai, flush with all the success that came from just having his head shaved, decided that the young King Cheng doesn't deserve the throne, and he starts working on his own bid for power. Whether or not Lu Buwei was involved in this remains iffy. Sima Qian seems to think so, but the other sources I've read aren't quite convinced. Regardless, in 238 BC, King Cheng was finally old enough to assume all control of his kingdom, and he finally caught wind of this. To his credit, instead of flying off the handle, he first ordered an investigation, just to make sure everything was true, with the adultery to the rebellion. It's a rational and reasonable decision. But of course it was all true, so Cheng flips his lid and orders his troops to arrest Lao Ai. Lao Ai, in turn, was able to muster some supporters loyal to the Lady Chou, who engaged the Qin royal troops, but they lost. When it was over, Cheng shows exactly what kind of king he's going to be. Lao Ai's children were killed. The queen, his mom, was exiled from Qin. Lao Ai was executed by being pulled apart by horses, and to really drive the point home, all relatives of Lao Ai were also killed. If he wanted to make a strong first impression as king, well, he did it. Once the blood stopped flowing and the figurative dust settled, Lü Buwei was left alone, watching his investment crumble apart, and what might be his own son viewing him with increasing scrutiny. This attempted coup left a deep mark on the young king's psyche, and his investigations had revealed Lü Buwei's affairs with his now exiled mom. This betrayal cut Cheng deep, and he was still angry even after wiping out an entire generation of Lao Ai's family. He wrote to Lü Buwei, "What was your merit in Qin, that Qin enfeoffed you with 100,000 households? How are you related to Qin that you are called second father?" As prime minister, he had done much for the kingdom actually, expanding its territory, fostering art and literature, and sponsoring a wide following of scholars and bureaucrats who depended on him for their jobs. They spoke in his defense to King Cheng, urging him to have mercy, and he did. Lü Buwei was spared execution. Instead, his lands were seized, his titles were removed, and he was banished to the southwestern frontier regions of the state. He was alive, but all of his careful planning, his shrewd investments, his hard work had led to this. He was a broken man. Lü Buwei never made it to his new home. Fearing that Cheng would have a change of heart and come for him, he drank poison and died in the year 235. One can only wonder if Cheng ever asked his mom if the rumors about Lü Buwei being his father were true. In the next episode, we'll witness the rise of the Qin kingdom as it conquers the warring states. One by one they'll fall, unable to reconcile their own differences and present a unified front against a highly aggressive threat. And at the helm is King Cheng, a young man whose once happy family has completely dissolved. His reaction to the betrayal was decidedly legalist, but there's already so much anger in his actions, his words. Fearing more outside influences, he tries to expel any non-Qin officials from his government, but his new advisor, Li Si, deftly convinces him not to. A legalist himself, he would be a close confidant of the king for his entire reign, even rising to Lü Buwei's old position of prime minister, which shows how much Cheng trusted him, especially since the king was already having trust issues. And if this is how he reacts to his own family betraying him, what other acts of cruelty is he capable of? But that's next time on the podcast History of Our World.